All right, let's move into our next topic. Blythe Milligan here with Grace Sharkey. This is Everything is Logistics presented by SPI Logistics. And we're going to get into a little bit of drama around the private label paradox. And the reason I wanted to bring this up.
Yes, because we hate Meghan Markle.
And that's because
Hate is a strong word. Maybe we shouldn't say hate right now, but we're fascinated. Yes, we're negatively fascinated.
And so when the reports came out, now for those of you who may be living under a rock, Meghan is technically a Duchess of Sussex, which is a part of England that she no longer lives in, that she said goodbye to with her spineless husband, Harry. And then they moved to the United States under the guise of wanting a private life, and has since launched several different high-profile Netflix shows, Oprah specials, Spotify podcasts, and then now a company. So she's gone through a little trouble as an entrepreneur. She tried to,
that's the American dream.
Well, speaking of American dream, she tried to trademark American Riviera Orchard, I think is the exact phrase. But according to trademark law, you cannot trademark a specific place. So her trademark was rejected. She can't, be 2-0 for trademarks, unlike me, like your girl over here. She doesn't have the staff to do it. She's probably too mean to them and bullying them. So she started up another company called As Ever. And As Ever is essentially, unlike what she bills herself on this Netflix cooking show, that's filmed not in her house. She doesn't live in that house. It's not her garden. It's not her honeybees. But yet she's portraying that she's selling all of these products, her raspberry jam and her honey and flour sprinkles, as if they come out of her garden. None of that is true because she's using a private label company, probably Netflix, but Netflix doesn't want to promote her brand on their website. I checked last night. So that I find that very interesting.
Oh, you think it's Netflix jam?
So the way it works is that for their popular franchises, Netflix offers a store, a brand that you can go and you can sell some branded merch for, like Stranger Things, for example, is like a perfect example. Where they have all of this Stranger Things merch that they've created. The rumors are that the people on the show get a kickback, some of those products that are sold.
What a stream of
and they offer this as an additional how do I want to say this? Additional perk of hosting a show that is successful on their platform. Since it's not that successful of a show.
How do we milk this?
So the route that she took for her business is going the private label route. And the private label route is very common among major retailers who will partner with, so say like Great Value with Walmart. I believe you have some information on Trader Joe's, Costco's Kirkland brand. These are all very successful private label companies that source their products from a co-manufacturer. And that person or that business, that manufacturer, is making the same products. Let's use like Kleenex, for example. Kleenex is going to make their product, and then Costco will come in and say, okay, we want you to make the same product for us, and we're just going to do a small markup on it, and you're going to put the Kirkland brand on it. And so they'll work out a partnership deal where there's a lot of this stuff is hidden. So a lot of these retailers don't even reveal on who their manufacturing partner is. There's been a long-standing rumor that Grey Goose, the famous vodka maker, makes the Kirkland brand vodka, even though Grey Goose has denied it in reports. They're under no legal obligation to admit it. But I was a former cashier at Costco, but that's always what I heard, is that the Kirkland brand of vodka is made by, allegedly, Grey Goose. So that is sort of the private label paradox of, how these companies, especially like celebrities, when they're pitching like I think it's Kendall Jenner and The Rock as well, like they pitch themselves as being like a tequila company owner. But all they're doing is going down, if they are even doing this much, but going down and finding a farmer who's already growing the agave, who's already has, some kind of tequila manufacturing that he's doing for some kind of companies. And then they just partner with them and slap their own label on it. That's essentially what Meghan Markle has done with her As Ever brand. And one of the quotes that I wanted to bring up, which was a little spicy, and I think I tagged you in it on Twitter, is that the reason her company, her rebranded company, is failing is because the quote is that she spent millions on PR instead of supply chains. And so when I see that, I say this is a gold mine. We got to cover this in the future show. So that's how we arrived here. And now we're going to tell you some of the success stories of some of the more popular private label brands and what makes them popular. And so I think you have Trader Joe's as an example. So tell us why Trader Joe's and their private label has been so successful.
Well, I do want to say too, I got a nice list of some private label behind the scenes for you too. So you brought up Costco, right? They do private label a bunch of other stuff. So one is their coffee is actually from the Starbucks manufacturer. Duracell does the Costco brand batteries. Bumblebee does the tuna for Kirkland or Costco. Walmart's known for doing this too. Tyson Foods is most of their chicken. So if you're buying Tyson chicken, it's the same as your Walmart chicken. Now, the reason I brought up Trader Joe's is because Trader Joe's, everything is private label. That's what they're built upon. So pretty much all of Trader Joe's food comes from the actual focus product. If you've been to Trader Joe's, even I think they have pretty close to the Girl Scout cookies too, because they're buying those directly from the same manufacturers that make the Girl Scout cookies. So you see this all over. But yes, Trader Joe's does this as their actual I guess strategy to existing today. 80% of their products are private labeled. A lot of it is like Frito-Lay does their pita chips. And so when you go and you see these better prices, know that they're coming there because they are technically some of the regular items that you're actually buying. And what I think is interesting is I've always heard this and I've thought to myself, well, why would, for example, why would Duracell do that? Why would Duracell also put their same batteries on a shelf next to them that they know is probably going to sell for less, right? Doesn't it seem odd, right? And the reason for it, though, is if you mathematically think about it, for them, it's about being able to produce higher volumes and bring those margins down no matter what.
And it's also an additional revenue stream for them.
Exactly. It's a way for them to basically compete with themselves on a shelf. And at the same time, they can do that because likely that price difference between the Duracell battery and the Walmart battery is still more than what you get from producing a larger scale. But I think it's interesting. When I really started learning about private brands and specifically started learning about Trader Joe's, I would tell you to go to, because they do hide it, but honestly, a lot of them do put it on their packaging at the end of it. So I would really push you to, I do this with pretty much all foods I buy now, is if they're pretty close to, if I'm looking at a regular brand and a private label, one, I'll look at first off, I'll look and see if it showcases where it's coming from. If it's in the same city, it's likely the same manufacturer. If it doesn't have that information on there, I go immediately to the ingredients, because the ingredients will read exactly the same. And if those ingredients read exactly the same, honey, save $1 and get the Walmart brand. And so I when I first learned about it, I think I saw a video on Trader Joe's over a couple of years ago, and the reason I started looking into it was because it was well, why would you do that, right? You're competing with yourself. That seems dumb. But then I started learning about that, and now as a consumer, it's I will gladly buy a private label, especially if things are looking the same in general. So yeah, that's why I think people love Trader Joe's so much. They love the one, you're getting things a little bit cheaper, but you're also getting the things you were already planning on buying at a little bit cheaper as well. So yeah, Some
Well, there's even like the Costco route where I was watching this video on like the history of like the Kirkland brand.
yeah,
And at first, so to back it up a little bit, like retailers like Amazon and I know Target in particular, they have multiple private label brands inside of their own, sort of digital, whether Amazon digital e-commerce stores, or within Target itself. And you would never know that that brand is owned by Target because it looks completely different, their packaging and all of that stuff. So Costco followed a very similar route in their early days where they had a bunch of different private labels, but quality control became a concern. And
mm,
so what they did is they created the official like Kirkland brand because it was based in the town that they had their home offices in. And so they called it Kirkland, and then they developed these relationships with these different suppliers that were already in their stores. And so they created like a pricing structure where they agreed that first of all, it's quality plus pricing. And so for the pricing, these brands that they partner with are not allowed to sell it for like a certain percentage above like I think 10%.
yeah,
So they have to keep their pricing pretty stable, and then the Kirkland brand will always be cheaper. And but also with the Kirkland brand, they partner individually for each of their like coffee, for example. They partner with one company for coffee, whereas maybe Amazon is partnering with several different companies for their battery production. So there's a level of like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours with the Kirkland brand. For someone maybe like a Duracell to create like and I don't know if they have like Kirkland batteries, but them just going with that example. But also they have an additional layer of quality control where no Kirkland brand is approved for a new product unless the CEO is actually testing it. And so they have
oh,
this like several layers of quality control, that will always sort of permeate throughout the company. And so I think that that's where everything from what you said to the success of the Kirkland brand, because I have a couple graphics here that it is it's ginormous of how much this brand has grown, the Kirkland brand in general. Like, look at these numbers. So, Campbell's, Hershey, Kellogg's, McDonald's, Nike, Kirkland has more revenue. And this is a chart from 2021, but you could argue that a lot of these numbers have stayed the same. If not, maybe Kirkland has grown more market share because, obviously McDonald's has struggled in the last couple of years. Nike has struggled famously in the last couple of years, but they have more revenue than all of the rest of the companies combined, which
yeah,
is crazy.
yeah. And the fun one for you personally, I actually learned it's kind of the same thing. Um, do you know who the Try Guys are?
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, they try things.
Go figure.
Yeah, so they're like it's a really popular YouTube channel. They try a bunch of things, and I like watching there, of course, like they go to like Disney World, and like try all the fun foods and stuff like that. And one of the episodes, Keith goes into because he's tried food at so many locations, he's starting to figure out like all of the Disney food is just craft. Um
Oh,
and
interesting.
yeah, so it's like I think some of it's grown right, and you can usually tell, but it's like Universal uses the same stuff. Like and I'm trying to think of what the food is that he usually gets that he's like, I know how this is gonna taste because it's craft. But amusement parks are doing this all the same thing too, right? It's like there's only he brings this up in one of the episodes. There's only truly in terms of like eating at schools, eating at amusement parks, eating at like public places, like 3 manufacturers of wholesale for this in like the whole United States. So it's like if it's not Kraft, I think said it was like GFS or someone else, but it's the same thing. Like a lot of that food you're eating is like the same in all those places. So
Have you ever seen that image of all of the businesses that and I'm gonna share it
yeah,
really
please.
quick. But if you're just listening, I'm sorry, but it's like this giant web of we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 companies, but all of these different brands that are under those 10 companies is just astounding. Like I can't even like zoom in enough on this photo for you to be able to see all of the labels that are associated with these 10 big companies are probably all using the same. That's why our
Yeah.
food system is shit.
Yeah.
Because they're all
Yeah.
using the same BS
Yes.
allegedly in all of their products, and then they feed them to us, and we're all have gut health issues because of it. So
Yeah. Except for like we love you, Coca-Cola.
I'm sure there's some brands in there that I do like. I do and I'll get more into this, a little bit in our last segment, but I'm on like a big like health revitalization journey, and I'll talk more about that here in a bit. But it's just the more with our food system, the more layers you peel back, it's like, wow, everybody is really like full of shit except for Kirkland and Aldi's and Trader Joe's. Like that's what it feels like, is that all of these companies are just out here trying to kill us. But then I think to kind of bring it full circle, the modern shopper is savvier, and they can see right through the bullshit. And I think that that's where companies like Costco with their Kirkland brand are succeeding
Yeah.
versus like the Meghan Markle like as ever brand, where she's launching like a new bottle of wine on Princess Diana's birthday. No lie.
What?
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
so she just loves to piss us off, doesn't she?
It's at that weird moment where like she's pissed off everybody in her personal like family close circle life, because none of them come to the wedding besides her mother. She disowns her father, who she still hasn't spoken to. She
Yeah.
forced Harry to disown his entire family and all of his traditions, and all of that. And now bringing it sort of full circle, it's like, you're not a stay-at-home mom, you're not a stay-at-home wife, like
Yeah.
you're kind of a fraud, because she's pitching all of these products that she's portraying herself as almost like a trad wife, and
Yes.
she's none of those things. And
No.
she's filming a reality show inside of a house she doesn't own,
Yeah.
picking stuff from a garden that's not hers, honeybees that are not, none of this is hers.
She's not touching people. My best friend is a bee gal. Um, Shout out to Bellwether Bees. If you need honey, go to their website. But she ain't touching no bees.
That's the thing. Like, shoppers can sniff this kind of stuff out. So she's kind of like 5-10 years too late on being like the Pinterest food influencer vibe.
Yeah.
Why
Which is
she
just
even
so
needs to
odd
pursue this career
because
path is beyond me. Um, but it's the private labeling of her brand is never going to work, because shoppers are much more savvy now,
yeah.
and they can seek out the brands that they truly resonate with or that they truly find value in.
Yeah.
And that's the Trader Joe's, that's the Kirkland brands. Maybe not so much as like, Great Value or even like Amazon Basics, because there's some questionable things going on with Amazon Basics that I don't necessarily agree with their private labeling, where they
Mhm.
essentially, there was like there was this bag manufacturer that spent like, I think it's called like Peak Design or something like that, but they make like travel camera bags, and they've been spent 10 years developing the concept around this bag.
Oh,
And then they want to add another revenue stream. They want to add another outlet. Where are people shopping? Of course, on Amazon. So they start selling their products on Amazon. Well, what does
oh,
Amazon do?
steals
They
it.
completely rip off his design that
Yeah.
he spent 10 years getting all of the due diligence and the product testing and the customer feedback and tweaking all of the things and supply and doing all of the things to get a
Yeah.
successful product to market. And they rip off his design. And if it wasn't for, and he says it in the CNBC video, that if it was early on in their business, they would have been crushed. And so now what they do is they make sure that they have a design patent on everything, so
Wow.
that Amazon can't come in. Because what happens is that if Amazon has all of this data, and allegedly they can go and see certain products that are selling very high, that have a low return rate, kind of bring it all full circle with this episode. And they
Totally.
could use that data to
Totally.
then go and make their own products, and then shove your product way down on the search result rankings and push their product to the top. And if it wasn't for him going to the media about this, about what Amazon was doing to him, then he says that his company would have been wiped out. Luckily, his fan base was built up and that it was stronger. So that a lot of these users went and left bad reviews on that Amazon product, and Amazon stopped making it. So that
Yeah.
is a minor like success story and sort of a David versus a Goliath kind of battle like that. But there are countless other people. My uncle was a victim of this. He was selling office products. He had the full like, in-person store that people would go to. Obviously, when times shifted, he moved his business online. Times shifted again. So he started selling his products that he was sourcing that were really good sellers that his customers loved, started selling them on Amazon. And there was one like ladder in particular that was like their number one seller. And then one day that business just gets cut off, and Amazon's ladder from Amazon Basics is shot to the top of the rankings, and his is nowhere to be found. And so that is a major, he pulled all of his business off of Amazon because of it, because he was so pissed off, and like rightfully so. But
Yeah.
that's kind of shady practices. Like
Oh,
consumers are getting wiser to these things, and
yeah.
they hopefully will spend, unless they need it, in 2 days. Hopefully you're making smarter shopping decisions because of all of the information that we have at our fingertips of the brands that do it right, like
Yeah.
Trader Joe's and Kirkland, versus the laziness or the outright theft
Yeah.
of what some of these other companies are doing.
It's almost like back to what I was saying about the AI stuff. It's like I think how much AI has grown, we've quickly started to realize like what's real and what's not. And I think as much as I don't want to make it like a political thing, but like I think we're seeing the same thing with our food as well, right? It's like, okay, we're understanding labels. We have the internet. We can easily look up what these ingredients are. The other thing too about it as well, and because we used to talk about this on Freightwaves Stockout show, is it's not hard for a lot of these companies to switch because they're already making these products for Europe, right? So it's like when
Like you're talking about like the red dye
yes,
and
yeah.
things
So
like that are in our food system for who
yeah,
knows
they're
what
really
reason.
just kind of taking advantage of maybe the ignorance of Americans and the lack of regulation in that space. So it's like I think the same thing is happening, right? Like with our food, where it's like, no, we're gonna figure out kind of what you're doing, and we're gonna make better decisions as consumers as well because of that, right? And more so, we know that you can pivot if you need to and still make a healthy margin because of our abilities to get our hands on those documents, to know that the ingredients are different and you're still able to be profitable at the end of the day.
Right.
So
It's like
I like it. We're almost like going through this like intelligence, maybe like revolution, where it's I mean, we see it in
our
other.
bullshit detector is getting better.
Yes, exactly. But I think that that's because we're getting smarter in a way, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's no longer that we have bullshit detectors. We just know it's not true. And so yeah, it's fun to like see how that's going to affect consumerism throughout the next couple of years.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll definitely say, like, after, like, all of the sort of the tariff drama, I've cut back on a lot of my just, I guess, dumb spending, like,
Totally.
that level of, like, consumerism where it's like, I'll buy, I'll spend $100 at Temu and I'll get 100 products, and, who
Yes.
cares? I'll just, throw it away if I don't need it,
Right.
it doesn't matter, and
Yeah.
Temu doesn't want it back, and so they're willing to let me keep it if I
Yeah.
don't want it. And or the product breaks within 2 months, and it's like, who cares? I'll just get another one for
Yeah.
$6. Like it's that kind of mindset that I think is shifting in larger scale. And you know, I don't know. I think for some of this stuff, if someone would have told me some of the things that are coming out of my mouth, even like 5, 6 years ago, I would have rolled my eyes at myself. Like, oh, who cares? Like, go save the planet, whatever kind of like I guess sarcastic remark. But I think that a lot of these, like, we just to bring it back, like we're just getting more savvy as a customer, and we're able to be maybe more intentional about where we spend our money. Is it, with small businesses, or is it something that's more of a quality item that's been handcrafted? Is it something, is it honey from a local, bee farm? Like that feels better to spend your money there. And I
Yeah.
think where, I kind of still have to make improvements is like the convenience factor. And, some of these items I just need it in 2 days. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to, look the other way of some of these practices based on needs. But I am trying to shift my consumer behavior into healthier options, more sustainable options, and just trying to be a better person, I guess, overall. It's
Well,
exhausting though.
and the one thing I will say to that though, and this is why I've always been bullish on more of like micro fulfillment and more of like how close are we to kind of the things that we want is what they say, convenience is the price of community, right?
Mm,
So um you know, consider that aspect, right? Like the fact that if we can actually get to a point where we feel like we're buying more like basically can we get to a point where we're ending that, where it's not a price, right? Where we can create fulfillment centers in a way that we can buy clothes and we don't have to worry about shipping our clothes from for $12 across the United States, but there's just, a short distance for that return. And so I think that is probably what more the reverse logistics, right, is trying to
mm.
do is like, well, can we figure out a way to make this all right sustainable in a realistic, more modern setting? So
Yeah, and if you're just listening to the isolated segment, because what sort of peek behind the
yeah.
curtain a little bit,
Well,
we are, yeah, it should be a link in the show notes, for you to be able to listen to that other conversation. And so on YouTube, we are still uploading this show in full to both the podcast and then also as a live video to YouTube. But then YouTube, the algorithm just likes it better if some of these segments are split up. And so if you missed any part of that return versus reverse logistics, that is in another show. It should hopefully be, recommended to you algorithm wise. But if not, just check out the playlist over on YouTube. So
yeah.